So the story so far here at Down with the King, it's kind of hard to say, but Sir Robert got himself into some legal trouble, but got out of it. Lady Margaret has collected up a couple of royals and a fairly powerful faction, and the others are in more moderate situations. Honestly, the two females are doing better than the two males. I don't think that has anything to do with them being female versus male. They haven't used any particular advantages that either way. The last video had a big rant on the end of on the backside of it, and I kind of want to play a little bit more, even though I was planning on taking a nap and whatnot. It got me fired up, man. I want to play. I'm not going to put it all on video the way I did before. I'm going to come back with little reports and whatnot instead. We get to see the thing that we didn't get to see before. So Sir Robert ends up as the first player, and the Crown Events is one political problem. We go to the political problems table. There's no modifiers on this. We roll, and we get a banking crisis. Okay, this is the Minister of the Treasury's problem. That's over here. Who's involved in this? There are no monarch's counselors, so no. The High Minister, who's over here. The Minister of the Treasury, over there. The Minister of Trade, over here. And the magistrate, who is in the non-office holders pile. Okay. Wow, I'm running out of this battery too. Great. Okay. So, because Lady Melanie is not doing terribly well at all, she wants to resolve this problem, which means she's going to have Sir Guy try to solve it. Now, Sir Guy is actually, even though he looks kind of young, he looks both foppish and young and strong. Well, he's more foppish than strong, which means he's good at doing stuff. So he's got a 5 as his base value, and he's going to throw his point in favor of that. The only other one to be involved in this is the Minister of Trade, who's going to cancel that out with a -1. I believe I need to roll less than a 5. I may be mistaken to solve the issue. I do indeed solve it, so it doesn't even get recorded as anything. But the monarch support goes up by 10 for a problem coming along and being resolved immediately. So we go up to a 110. Just to give you an idea of that. Now I'm going to start, I guess, the actual player turns. And here's the thing. The famine's gone. That was a one-turn event. The only way that you can have long famines is off the agricultural crisis or whatever. Which means people can, spend money and stuff again. But counseling cannot be made on anything. Because there is no problem in play right now, and there wasn't a court ball or anything. Is intrigue one of these? Yeah. Intrigue's a Crown event, and that allows you to counsel an intrigue. Scandal's a Crown event that allows you to... but you can't counsel when the problem is not available anymore. So if it gets resolved right away, there's no counseling on it, which is an interesting, reduction to capabilities of having an office holder or whatever. Normally, these players who have office holders would be able to counsel with their office holder. It might mean he loses his office. It might mean he gets accused of a wrongdoing. You could also have a henchman do it for him. Yeah. Again, in some places, this game just, it doesn't make any sense. It's like they tried to add, I feel like they tried to put things in for ease of gameplay or something like that, but the game is such a mess and so hard to play anyway, and such a pain to play, that you're not going to attract people on that. I'm going to jump in with some discussion here because a couple of things happened very quickly. Sir Robert went first. He managed to get another character. Great. Did the crafts table. It's a low risk table. that can give you a slow accumulation of benefits, I tend to like it a lot. I'll go elsewhere when I need to, like, you know, the fashion table is nice, but he's already wasted he's already got a minus on that. But Lady Margaret, what did she get? She got an IP, yeah. She got character 62, who is Lady Elizabeth up here, would be useful. However, remember I only have 2 points available to me. That's a 3-point cost. I can't muster her without gaining some PP. So I'll probably want to do something with Margaret. Maybe play on the fashion table. My card draw is Royal Alignment Queen Catherine. This is an interesting card. It's useless right now. I can't take Queen Catherine because she's married. But it is possible that King George dies and Queen Catherine becomes available as a monarch. So it's worth holding on to, but, you know, it pads your hand with non-illegal cards, among other things. I just wanted to go into that before, you know, while that's really on my mind, and then I'll move on with her turn. Jump to the next character. Let me swap batteries because that's done charging. To the next character, and I wanted to talk about something because there's a component issue here. Not the only one. I drew this. I got an extra activity chit, which is useful because I did things kind of in the wrong order without realizing. And the thing that I didn't realize is that I've traveled to Bezazin in order to grab him. And that's, this counter is so hard to see that, you know, white on white and everything, it made it, let's watch it fall apart. It made it relatively, like, invisible to me, to my eye, which means I neglected it. Luckily, I had the extra activity to do the travel first. I did a roll on the craft table, got myself like 3 IP, 3 PP. That's kind of one of the good results off the craft table. That's on a 10. You can get much more on a really lucky roll, but you generally have to build up your pluses to get those kind of things. That's why I like the craft table. It sort of bootstraps kind of nicely. If you look at something else like the business speculation, look, the base roll on it isn't very good. It also only generates IP. It generates shitloads of it. But again, it's PP you generally want. There's very seldom times when I want to spend IP. Buying offices, there's all kind of stuff like that, but I just don't find myself doing it. I find myself trying to improve my PP so I can get people here. And, you know, buying an office is just not all that valuable, and you tend to get a slow flow of IP into your hand anyhow. Draws for Melanie, and again, I want to just point something out. This is where the game is, you know, it's just, it doesn't work in terms of, like, the mechanisms are just too cumbersome and annoying. I draw an intrigue counter. I know it allows me to do some things that I can't do otherwise, or it allows me to do some things in conjunction with event cards that I need both, right? So I have to look it up every fucking time it comes up. It's one of the problems with chip pulls for events and stuff like that. It's one of the reasons that I do not like the Sword and the Stars down there, but love Empires of the Middle Ages. Because Sword and the Stars, instead of cards for events, they ended up giving you a pile of chits for events. And it means you have to reference an extra card or a rule book or something like that in order to figure out what the hell is going on. Sure, you know, it's cheaper to print it that way. And yeah, I understand, but it also makes the game just no fun. And it takes away enough of the pleasure. We'll get to Sword of the Stars someday if I live long enough. But anyway, I'll get to her turn. The choices that Lady Melanie has to make. She had 11 PP. I've got 6, 7, 8, 9 of them used up. I drew 43. That's Duke Henry. He's 5. I didn't have enough points for it. So I go to that literary pursuits table where I was on, and I have a +1 on it. Great. I roll, and I get a PP. I also get +2, which is the maximum that you can have. It's very easy to get up to a +2 in rank that way. There are no penalties on it, so it's kind of a nice table. But it just doesn't pay off the way the craft table does, right? I just feel like there's certain prestige tables that are just a good idea and others that are not. So like if I compare craft table to literary pursuits, the only reason I should go to the literary pursuits is if I fail at the craft table. Basically, authors are people who failed at other tasks in life, which seems reasonable, but anyway. So I spent my first action getting on there. I'm not going to be able to do this, so I'll probably intrigue a card from her hand because I don't know what else to do. And that's often the case in this game. You're left with, I don't know what to do. You know, there's nothing. There's nothing. I don't have enough PP to get stuff, and I don't have an easy way to get PP. I don't have enough money to buy a PP. I believe it's 5 per, and 1 doesn't do it for me, right? I'm at 6, 7, 8, 9. I'd have to get to 14. I'd need 2 more, and I don't even have the 5 for 1. Even if it was 3, I still couldn't buy 2 of them. It just feels like the different opportunities of things to do are not at all balanced. The different prestige tables aren't balanced, the different, you know, and especially when you look at, hey, do I want PP? Well, patronage is interesting because if you get a high value on patronage, you can double your PP. So that's incredibly valuable. So that would have been a better choice to aim for, but I have no bonuses on that. So it's kind of risky. If I lost enough PP, I would lose my character. I would lose some of the characters I have. I probably should have taken a shot at it, though. Here we come to the end of the turn. And this is why it's important that Monarch support happen at a specific time. Because if it happens at the end of the turn, it doesn't really work. Because I have to remember that there were no political problems at the beginning of the turn, which was not, and none occurred, which is not the case. So actually, it's the political problems phase in conjunction with the events phase. You have to combine those two, and you should actually make the assessment, I think, between the crown events and the player turn, but I don't think it takes impact until the end of the turn, because it's the player turn when you would do a usurpation. So again, there's just this problem. I have to remember information to the end of the turn. In this case, it's that I've already added 10 for solving a political problem that showed up this turn. And so I don't get the 5 for started the turn without a problem and none occurred. We got 2 political problems. The first one is peasant unrest. The High Minister is in charge of that. That's Earl Francis. He probably doesn't want to particularly solve it, but remember, deliberate incompetence comes with the possibility of losing the job. But he's pretty bad on his... Oh, fuck. I guess I can't smoke this pipe. What was it? Peasant unrest, High Minister, the Sheriff and the Archbishop, neither of which are controlled. So I'm going to give myself a -1, and I fail. I mark Peasant unrest a turn event. That's going to take away 10. Now I roll for the second political problem. And I think this is the order you do it. Foreign War, Minister of the Army. Foreign War table is checked on here. I think I get to check that before I make a resolution, whatever it might mean. We've got a foreign war with all other countries. So I'm going to go here and write all. That might get erased immediately. Okay, and we take a look at the foreign war. The Minister of the Army. He's got a big capability of 6 because he's dressed fancy. The Minister of State gets to affect this. I don't know which way to go. You know, I don't know if I care one way or the other. This number is awfully high, and it's really hard to get it down. But I'm not doing very well. So I'll help him. They certainly won't hurt him. Minister of the Army, he doesn't help himself because he's neutral, and the General. And that's all there is. So only on a 6 does this fail. Oops. So now we have a foreign war. Now if this goes 3 times, it would go to with all countries. What this means is these ambassadors are all frozen in place. If anybody's in travel, and I don't think anybody is anymore, they're frozen, it causes all kind of issues for people who are out at sea. All right, at this point I can judge the political problems, and we had 2 political problems in play, and both of them are still there. So the monarch support goes down 20 points. Yeah, it can drop fast. And now, of course, I have to check for the sequence of play to see what happens. No. It's Crown Offense phase, yeah. And nothing happened in the office phase, so we're on the player turn starting with Melanie. Melanie got the intrigue counter again. Unfortunately, my lack of PP is a real problem. But it's why I'm so good at seducing. And I'm playing with the optional rules, so I think I can try to seduce a royal or whatnot as well. But the thing is, the goal of seduction, or the goal of treachery, the things I can do with this intrigue counter, is that I'm able to recruit characters. Like, that's kind of the big bonus of drawing that counter, is you're allowed to do certain things that, like, you know, are harder, and you can actually affect enemy characters. So I could target somebody like Sir Geoffrey, who's not very high. He's only a 3. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 3, I actually have enough for him. But this guy's worth more. Of course, I could get a higher swing and throw a henchman out and everything by taking Sir Geoffrey over. So that's kind of appealing. Just, you know, throwing out there some of the options that I have. I also have to count my cards. Once I go to 12, I'm out, and you start with 10, so might want to spend a treachery card instead of do a seduction. Decided I had enough money, I wanted to play around on the big patronage table that can get you tons of PP, because that's what I really need. That's what I really need. Unfortunately, I rolled not too good. I'm obscene. Roll on the scandal table. Now, what it doesn't have here is what modifies the scandal table. And I know that there are modifiers. So again, I'm looking through the rules to find the answer. I'm going to elide that effort. But just keep in mind, you're going to constantly be looking through the damn rule book, which is why it's not in good shape. Even though this isn't a game I played a hell of a lot, you have to flip through the rules constantly in it. Lucky for me, I had an informer card that gave me a +1 on the table. Nobody else is allowed to play. Again, you have to dig through the rules to see if other people are allowed to play cards in a particular case. If somebody was performing an expose a scandal activity on me, they would get to play, but otherwise they do not. And that gave me an 8, which is no effect, and that's about the best I can hope for, because nobody was actually involved in this, so I can't turn it against someone. But that's one of my 2 actions. I don't know what my second action is. Again, intrigue. I mean, I could assassinate someone, but do I really want to do that kind of shit? I'll probably go for Sir Geoffrey, because I don't have enough points to get Earl Francis. I could improve my situation by marrying Duke Marley. That would give me an additional 6 in this case. Well, it would give me a 6 status instead of my 3. Which is a nice bonus. It would also take 6 of my PP expenditure out of the alignment, and I'd be in a much better shape for next turn. If I have an extra activity, I could even do something. But I do not. I have a Monarch's Counselor. I could just play that. That would allow me to counsel, but I can already counsel with the Minister of the Treasury. So no problem there. Actually, I'm not. Is it an ice cream truck? I can't think with that shit. Okay, I have to check counselor. Again, I have to fucking look up all the rules, right? Because they just don't stick. There's too many little bits. But I have to check counselor because I'm not sure if he's allowed to counsel on anything or only on his problem. And I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm allowed to counsel on anything as long as I have a real office holder. The ambassadors cannot counsel. They're sort of out of play. So I couldn't even marry him if I wanted to. And he's the one I'd want to marry. The question is, how does the seduction work? All right, that's my other option here. And that's an activity. Again, the card doesn't give enough information, and they're not in the same order, so they're not terribly helpful. So I would be seduce a character. I would draw an intrigue. I have it. I must have enough PPs to recruit the character. I do. I point. I've got to read this entire fucking paragraph to get what the modifiers are, right? Unless they have it here. Recruit, seduce. Informer negates the seduction. Treachery negates seduction. Okay. So I'm going to be going after Jeffrey. She looks to see, do I have an informer or treachery? It's useful to keep cards. Treachery. Treachery is useful, but I want it out of my hand. My hand size is getting small, so I just prevent that. That ruins her attempt. She's done. She doesn't have this either because she only had 2 actions. Now I get to counsel. Do I want to counsel? Sure. Why not? What problems do we have? We have peasant unrest and foreign war. And we're going to zoom in on this because we really haven't looked at this too carefully. We've looked at the table, the court ball one, whatever. Peasant unrest and foreign war. Foreign war, state army in general, state and ambassador, who wouldn't have a capability, state army general. So the problem here is state is controlled by someone else, and Minister of the Navy is somewhere else. Minister of the Army is safe. So I would be going probably against penalties on the foreign war, so I don't want to do that. What about the peasant unrest, which seems more likely to be in my wheelhouse? High Minister. Okay, so I have the Ministry of the Treasury, who doesn't affect any of these. And again, let's take a look at what we got here. High Minister, we don't have to worry about. Archbishop, Sheriff. So I could discharge the High Minister. High Minister, Archbishop, Sheriff, Minister of Justice. Justice ended up somewhere over here. Now, that would be enact repressive laws. That would probably, he'd just penalize me. Enact liberal reforms, Archbishop, Sheriff, Justice. Again, probably don't want to do that. Take military action. Minister of the Army. That's open. High Minister is open. General and Sheriff. This has more impacts. Do I have peasant support cards? If I have peasant support cards, I do not want to do that. And remember, you have to do each one of these ones. I do, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go for discharging the High Minister. I have no benefits, and no one else has any benefits that they can play. Which means we roll on the normal... Nobody's courted the favor of a FARC. I think that's an action. Yeah. And it's like, you just don't gain much from it. I mean, again, it's like, why aren't you using, the prestige tables? Well, you can only use the prestige tables once, so it can give you a secondary way to gain some resources, I guess. So what are we rolling on? We're rolling on here, and we've decided that the value is 0 in modifiers. We get a 9. Monarch is pleased, council is accepted, gain 2 PP. That's kind of cool. I need those, especially after writing an obscene... What did I do that was obscene? It wasn't writing. It was patronage. And now it was affected. So this is peasant unrest. I have to mark that down. Peasant unrest. Player 4 did number 1. And the High Minister has been discharged, so he essentially is dead. He's not. I mean, if he was under control by a player, it would then it would position. The player would still have control of the character. He would just lose the office. Now, did I really want to do this? I don't really want the effect. I wanted the 2 PPs. I don't want the effect because now an office is open, and it's one that I'm not going to be able to get. But just to give you an idea of, there's sort of this fruitlessness to the actions in the game, which... That reminds me of a game that I mentioned just recently that I love, Empires of the Middle Ages. But in Empires of the Middle Ages, the fruitlessness is kind of impactful. You're trying to do impressive things. You're trying to improve the economy and whatnot. Here, you're just trying to gather up enough points to be able to challenge this and hope that other players get enough points so that there's not too much in here, right? Because... Let's look at the usurpation. The monarch's usurpation, all NCs and NRCs count. So all of these characters, their statuses count in favor of the monarch. It's really hard, you have to suck the pool of characters dry to be able to start usurping stuff. Take a look at character death. We're over here. I'm talking more than I'm playing, obviously, but if you look at the situation when a character dies, one of the optional rules is to remove them from the game, unless it's a PC. So basically, the PC's family is huge, and they have all kinds of heirs and whatnot who can take their place, but the other characters just die permanently under that model. What are you looking at here, right? It's like, in Republic of Rome, when a character dies, their card goes out of play for a while. The family has to kind of recuperate. The only exception to that is the PC, right? The actual character that's your faction leader, that character will always have an heir ready to step up and step in. Or stand by and stand back. But in this, everybody just regenerates immediately. And this is a much shorter time period. The game is the lifespan at the most of King George, right? Well, no, because he could die within the game. But it's basically, at most, it feels like maybe 10, 20 years of time. Enough time maybe for a single heir to come up, or maybe 2, but not much more than that. And the idea of characters just dying and recycling constantly doesn't make a lot of sense. But the idea of them dying once may not be appropriate either. The one nice thing about it is it depletes the deck and makes it easier to do the usurpations, which will get the game over quicker, which is a good thing because it's a shitty game. Sort of the design philosophy of this reminds me a little bit of something that's a lot better because you can overlook some of the design flaws in it, which is Source of the Nile. Source of the Nile is kind of cool, but it has lots of charts and tables, not all of which, there's things you just don't want to do in Source of the Nile on the charts and tables. But it at least develops an interesting story, etc. I got to get to that one as well. And also, the guys who did Cave Evil, the Emperors of Eternal Evil or whatever, they put out kind of a semi-reprint of it, Mountain Men, or something like that. That's like the same kind of design, but exploring the West. So I really should get to that. I wasn't, you know, it was just a free gift. It wasn't like, but I actually have supposedly a Sparta game coming that is a review copy. So, yeah. And all these new things that showed up. Oh, Sir Robert here had a relatively minor turn. He gained something, Sir Malcolm. It's pretty cool. We got to Lady Margaret. She decided to, first of all, I've seen a couple of new chits that we haven't seen recently. And I'm trying to remember what one was. This one is Scandal, which allows me to do an expose a scandal. Not really something you want to do unless somebody's obviously in the lead. It might be worth targeting her with it, but probably not. The other one I got that was new, oh, Favor. He got Favor, which is gain an IP unless you have a FARC, in which case you can also, you get a big bonus on courting the FARC, which could be worth doing. But she rolled on the craft table and got a shitty roll. And this is the danger to the craft table. Note that, like, you know, on the patronage table, look, you could be accused of a wrongdoing, you could end up dead. You could lose 20 PP. It's a dangerous table. But the craft table is also dangerous. With a 3, poor workmanship, lose 10 PP and all IP. 10 PP means she's down to 11. What can she hold with 11? Yeah, that's the problem. I can hold any one of my characters, basically. I'll keep John because he's the most valuable of the pile. Philip will go here. I'll try to figure out where he goes. Sir Geoffrey, the Minister of Trade, is no longer a henchman and goes here. So her entire faction was wiped out by a bad roll on the prestige table. On the other hand, I may have enough. Maybe I actually want to hold Philip, because then I'd have enough points to get Lady Mary. How's Philip's? See, he's got a 1D times 3. I don't feel like I'm close to it at all, though. So I'm going to actually hold on instead to Philip and let John go away, who is too high to really hold. And that'll allow me to then muster a female with some real seductive capabilities here in Lady Mary. Again, if you're going to get a female, she's not the best choice. And no intrigue counter. James also rolled on the craft table. He had a +1 on it. Unfortunately, rolled a 2, got the same result, lose 10 PP, all 8 IP. Knocked out his +1. It wiped out his faction. Have an extra activity card. Certainly not going to be able to use that. I did one thing with the prestige table. I can do one more thing. I can't recruit 41. He's too big for me. I'm down to 4 PP. I don't know what I can do. I can look at the activities and see if there's anything I can do. I could fill an active office. I have no money. I think I'm basically screwed and can't do a damn thing. Because I have absolutely nothing. So not only do I waste my extra activity, I waste my second activity, because I'm just wiped out. I got nothing I can get out of it. That is the end of whatever this is. Third turn, I think. And you can see, you know, again, fruitless, right? You try to build things up, bad shit happens, you get wrecked. A bad die roll like this, even though you've developed a bonus or whatever, you get wrecked. It's really that kind of way. And the thing is, each time you end up losing a bunch of PPs and stuff gets thrown into here, well, that strengthens the monarch again. Now, if I recall correctly, I've already subtracted the 20 for the turn, so I'm just collecting my stuff up here. I'm going to go away for a while. Wow, probably a couple of days, because it's Friday. Saturday I don't want to play anything. I'm, too run down on Saturdays, unless, I don't know, I'm not feeling terribly, like I got itchy eyes, and that's been something that's been affecting me recently, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's allergies, but I suspect it's more dust in the house or something, which happened, and like that the air is getting drier. That combination is like hitting me. But yeah, I mean, it seems like you're just spinning your wheels and not getting anywhere. And the nice thing about Empires of the Middle Ages is it has an end date, right? Even if you're playing the grand campaign, it has an end date, which means that, like, let's say you're playing a smaller scenario or something that's a couple of turns. Even if you don't succeed in building stuff up or something, you're not aiming towards some kind of impossible to get victory condition before the game ends. And you really kind of are here. Now, eventually, something will happen. The game will eventually end up in death of all the royals, and, you end up like just everybody. It ends up in a draw because nobody's able to win. It's not an everybody loses situation. The kingdom's fine, There's nothing of interest in this game, right? Like, I just look at that and I'm like, think about Republic of Rome with its, like, you're trying to keep the empire, you're trying to keep the Republic alive and functioning at the same time as you're trying to destroy the Republic and make it into a dictatorship in your favor. But you're also just trying to keep it alive, against external threats and whatnot. It's an interesting situation in a lot of different ways. And so many other things that are interesting in that game. But in this, there's nothing. We're in Empires of the Middle Ages. Sure, it's fruitless, but you're attempting to develop your economy. You're attempting to expand your kingdom and whatever. You're attempting to hold on to what you have, perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, I'm out for now. Let's get some personal reference into things, since I think this is the second video in this series. And anybody who sticks around that long, especially since I've already basically given my review, deserves this shit. It's Sunday morning, late morning, after my day of recovery. It's something horrible happened, and good things too, so maybe it was the magical price and all that. On my night out, I lost my tobacco pouch. Well, I think it got stolen, somebody thinking it was a wallet or something. So I had a long walk home without a smoke, and that's kind of sad. I stopped in at the convenience store. I would have gotten coffee and a pack of pipe tobacco if they had it, or a pack of, like, backwoods cigars or something like that if they had them. But I didn't see either. But I didn't think about something I could have done, which I smoke in my pipe sometimes, which is, roll your own cigarette tobacco. And I'm sure they had packs of that. But I found my usual donuts, which are always there, and calzones, which have, whatever my timing is, I've been hitting the right timing recently. It's like sort of the perfect weather right now. Spring and fall are good here when they're real, right? It gets too hot some of the time still, but yeah, it's kind of nice. And I saw two things on my walks. Well, one thing on my walk and one thing just this morning. This morning I saw the smallest baby squirrel I think I've ever seen out and about. Little thing, so tentative and so scared and, afraid of jumping and stuff like that. I swear, I don't know, I'm trying to think how big he must have been. probably about my span of my hand, maybe a little bigger. But just look so tiny and so like his fur was mussed up as if he hasn't learned how to groom himself properly and everything. It was just so cute. But also, there are goslings out, and I've been, like, the last time I went to the bar, there were a couple of squads of geese out there, each with, like, 6 or 7 of them. But now, the place where I walked by, some couple must have lost, like, all their goslings, because they had one. There were, like, 10 geese, 10 full adult geese guarding this one gosling. Anyway, let's get ready to go. The way I determine who's first player, I just roll a die. And I'm using a 10-sider. I should probably use an 8-sider because of the number of players, and then do a quick division. So we're going to have things start over here. We'll see if I can remember how to play and, the things I kind of learned last time. Again, I don't really expect to get through this, but because I don't enjoy it. But I have, like, a limiting factor in terms of how short I'm going to cut this game, which is that I just got a review copy of something. So, and yeah, if you're subscribed to my Games Not Yet Receiving, or my charity for I don't know what it is, for unwanted games or whatever, Geek Lists, you'll get a flash on that. I know most people aren't really in that. It's a good idea to be subscribed to the Games Not Yet Receiving treatment, because that's the place where you vote for stuff like that you want. Do I follow that? Not 100%. But, it's it does have some influence sometimes, right? Like, I look and I say, I want to get something that's, in the header, which right now means that, like, it's got 40 or more votes or whatever. All right. I'm just delaying the game, right? So, I don't know if we've done this yet. I'm in the office phase. Melanie's the first player. She has 2 people in her faction who can hold an office. It's the office holder phase, and there's one that's open. She could spend $2 and transfer Sir Guy over to High Minister. She can't do Duke Marley because there's foreign wars everywhere. She has to put the High Ministry up, and the big question is, does anybody want to get it? Now, our main character here is Sir Robert. It might be worth the $2 in order to grab the High Ministry. I think it is. So we'll just do that. It's cheaper than you're able to get it if it's available during your turn. And since this is the main character, it doesn't count against my PP. And, I still have to open the book for this tiny little sequence of play, right? One that doesn't give, much additional or any additional information, and actually doesn't even cover, like, when the monarch support is supposed to be set, which I feel like it should be specified. Now, I don't even think it says this, but it's so hard to fucking find anything here. It's established at the beginning of the game. See, it's just each turn, there's a specific time when you want to deal with it, which I believe is right after the Crown Events phase. But is there a way to resolve a political problem during your turn? I don't think so. I don't think there's an action that allows you to do that. No, so I think it should be done right after the Crown Events phase. But if you look up, like, what would you look up to see Crown Events? You'd look up Crown Events, and it doesn't tell you anything about that's when you do it, right? Like, There's no description of what you actually do in the phase. It's pretty clear in most cases. You roll on the Crown Events table, you implement the things, and the Crown Events table goes here. Then we go to Royal Succession. Okay, that refers to it. But then we go to player turns. We jump away from the political problems, and this isn't done in sequence, to match the sequence of play or anything. It's just kind of weird. Now, this was developed by Alan Moon, but from what somebody said, this is fairly early in his time at Avalon Hill. I don't really know about that. I'm trying to remember, because he put out an abstract game for Avalon Hill that I think was... And I also don't know about his history. I mean, did he come over with the 3M games or something like that? I really don't know. Anyway, anybody who knows more about Alan Moon, that would be great, because he's become kind of a name over the years. He shows up on a few AH games. Did he design Hexagony? That's the one I'm thinking of, which definitely wasn't 3M. But yeah, he's developer of this. But it doesn't follow the kind of feel that you would like in a rule book. There's so much wrong with this whole design that, yet it still, I feel, has influenced. So Rick Helly got back to me about, still trying to delay the game, right? Got back to me about the Founding Fathers, which he did. And he did that, that was, admittedly derived from Republic of Rome, a game that he very much likes and has done a couple of things derived from it. And what he tells me is that, there was an effectiveness rating in that game, but he took that more to replace the military rating in Republic of Rome, because the game wasn't about military aspects alone. In Republic of Rome, you don't have sort of a political effectiveness. You have the ability, you have oratory and stuff like that, But actually, that played on my memory, and I've also been watching something on John Quincy Adams. I'm like, geez, Rick, if you're listening, you may want to update something in Founding Fathers. I know he doesn't like to put a lot of special cases for particular characters, I guess, which Republic of Rome definitely did, with Pompey having his own special way of generating a military rating and stuff like that, and a lot of people having relationships that are expressed on the cards. But John Quincy Adams maybe should have a lowered effectiveness rating when he's president. I don't think it's done in the game. Maybe I just forgot. But he was so effective at everything else, and not when he was president. But I found out some of the why. He was the first president to kind of get rid of the full partisan patronage system. And then, it came back after him, but he really believed in, not replacing everyone for partisan reasons. Which just shows, sort of how impressive he was in a lot of ways. All right. Enough of a sideline. Let's get going with the political problems. I guess we'll do a little bit of zooming in here. The foreign wars is decided by the Minister of the Army. He'll try to solve the issue, and he's in a foppish costume, so he's very good at it. He has a 6. The people who can affect that are the Minister of State and Army and the General. Well, the Minister of State is over here, And somehow he's become the most important and valuable faction. He's going to actually penalize Percival's capability to do this. However, the issue is resolved. Resolving an issue, I believe, gives 10. Again, not on any charts or anything. You have to flip through and find the rule, as in so many places. There's a lot of charts in this game already, you know, and a lot of player aids. 10 for each problem that's resolved. So that will improve things, and I will erase the Foreign War. It has been resolved, and I'll erase the Foreign Wars problem. The only thing that really matters is once something goes 3 turns or more. Then I go to Peasant Unrest, which is the High Minister. Okay. And the Sheriff and the Archbishops. I'm going to improve my chances of solving that. That gives me a target number of 4. That means I have to roll under a 4 to solve it. I get a 5. Now, what I have to do is I have to kind of parenthesize this, because this isn't part of his. He wasn't the one who was faulted for it last time. And Peasant Unrest goes a 2nd turn now. Now, 2 turns. If it fails again next turn, something new shows up. And that's a failure to resolve. What's that, 10 off? Yeah, that's going to be 10 off, so they cancel out. And now I think we're on the Crown Events table. I know we're on the Crown Events table. And we get a 4. That's going to be a famine. I don't remember what that does. I know you can't spend IP. Cards are impacted. No player can spend IPs. No counseling is allowed this turn. There's no way to mark this. I wish there was like, and again, you could make little status tracks and whatnot. I wish there was like something to indicate this kind of stuff. And in fact, a lot of this could be done on another piece of cardstock where you moved some counters around on it. And it would be easier than keeping track of everything on paper. I was also told that a couple of games that I think I print and played, at least in part, well, like I printed and didn't put together, Henry VIII and Mary Queen of Scots are actually based on this. And yeah, I kind of remember that. And maybe better versions of this. First of all, more historically aligned, but also just, you know, they may have improved some of the interactions and play mechanisms in it. That was the impression I got from the guy who told me about that. All right. And where am I on the sequence of play? I think I'm on the player turns. I can't be sure because, again, I have to look it up each time. Like I said, those zero out. And, yeah. Or why I screwed up, I had 36 over here instead of 56. I just drew 56 for Lady Margaret. I'm going to swap that out because that was obviously a mistake. I don't think it had any real effect, you know, I mean, because I redrew the opportunity chit. If I took it as a pass or a miss or whatever, it would be problematic. And I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I did a craft table roll and got a nice big roll of 11, and yeah, I'm swaying for some reason, just from foot to foot. That gave me a +2 on my craft, a big 5 IP and PP. The problem with her is she's got the big -2 on the patronage, which would also cost money right now. But that's the big way to gain PPs, and she needs a lot right away. Has an extra activity right now. So I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I have a card for Almery, but I don't think I want to go with that. I think I want to go with the chit that I can't, you know, that's sort of a one-time shot. Sure, it might come around again, but somebody else might get it or whatever. Whereas the card in my hand for Almery, and I've talked about this before, is something that I get to hold unless it gets taken from me. One thing, you gotta be careful when you have multiple chit cups. I threw the extra activity, which I used, got myself a Monarch's Counselor as well, is throwing them in the wrong cup. And then you pull something and you're like, this is not right. I'm right up against the boundary. I have like 10 PP utilized out of my 11. Now, obviously, I can look and see, am I good at anything? Not really. I'll probably try to roll on craft table. It's probably the best thing for gaining PPs and IPs, which I kind of need. But my number is 46. That's the first judge there. Judges are cool. They don't cost you anything to hold. I think everything else has a status, but judges do not. Yeah, the admiral, the general, the magistrate, they all have a status, but the judges don't. So they're kind of freebies that you can pick up whenever you get them, and you know you're not going to lose them except, you know, I don't know, through like death or something. And they're hard to kill too. I guess they can be recruited by treachery. They're hard to kill because they can't duel. And I don't know, they're excluded from a lot of stuff that can go wrong. So judges often stay with you for the game and they don't cost anything. They're great to draw that shit whenever, really. Now, over here, character 35, I found him. I don't have the points to grab him, wherever he is. He's sitting here somewhere. Ministry of Justice. I did a literary pursuits, got an advantage out of that. But I can try to seduce someone. This guy's in the lead, so I'm going to go for him. And I can use Lady Mary for this. I had to check to make sure that I don't need to have a henchman. You can do it with any female in your grouping. I'm not really worried, like there's optional additional seduction rules. I'm not really too worried about those right now. I don't want to play around with them right now, although I am playing with them. I think the basic ones are probably more effective if you can do them. So she's going to go for Sir Malcolm to try to take him away. Now we take a look. Informer negates it. Treachery negates it. He'll probably want to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He has his maximum cards, which is why he'd want to play. He doesn't have one, so now I've just stolen Sir Malcolm, who I have enough points for. And that'll move me to the last guy, who is weaker than he started. Picked up another judge, the second judge, which means no matter what, whenever there's a trial or whatever, players are going to have for trials, players are going to have a major advantage if their judge gets picked. That's a 5-point swing in a trial. My gut's acting up, so I'm going to be stopping after I say this. He also grabbed a good roll on the craft and got himself, you know, he's building his way back up, basically. Okay, fuck. Battery. Not doing what it's supposed to. I kind of don't trust either of these. That one may be fine. So I resolved my internal problems. And back up to do another quick one now. Peasant unrest was not resolved yet again. He's got a good chance. That gets it to the third turn. I had to look in the rules. No impact for the optional rule for peasant unrest to cause anything additional. I thought it might. But anyway. That means, although we've had 3 turns, we've got a -10 kind of on the books right now. And I can put it into play because I've rolled the Crown Events table, which came up as intrigue. What does intrigue do? I'm allowed to intrigue as the first player a card from another player's hand. I'm going to go for this guy. He can't really do anything about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We got to get a different kind of die. Swapped out to nothing but blue dice. I should switch those to blue. Yeah, you still need the red white. Okay. Running from the top. I get a 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This card is revealed. It is illegal. Something bad happens. Okay, let's take a look. Intrigue. If it's an illegal card, the owning player keeps the card but is accused of a wrongdoing. Okay. He had this problem before. He doesn't have a henchman or anything. So we're going to go through that sequence. I'll just report on it, but basically I'm going to have to go through the rule book again, follow that entire procedure while adhering closely, while looking up in the rules each time what modifies, what works, etc. The fact that he's the lead player, in terms of, probably in the best shape, it's hard to tell. She's still pretty strong. Honestly, everybody but him is probably about equal. The thing with her is she has a royal heir, but that doesn't really matter. So I've been thinking about him as the lead, but it's only really because he has he has a fair number of characters, but I'd say everybody's about equal. But it does mean that people will probably target him. They might not have targeted this guy in the same fashion. About this, and this is why I think a card with a bunch of info on it would be useful. So one of the things that would be useful is marking what the crown event is for that turn. Because the crown event affects, first of all, it affects certain things, and those can be listed on that card. It also impacts what you can do and whatever. It's just a useful thing, and it affects your counseling tables that you're allowed to use to some extent. Problems do too, But it just feels to me like instead of, some of this I think you'd need, but maybe some of it could have been reflected in materials that aren't a sheet of paper as well. Not really sure. It often feels like, for example, how many 1 point of each of IP and PP do you actually need? The game holds 6 players. There's never any need for more than one point counter for any player, right? So you only need 6 of each of these. How many deuces do you need? Well, you never need more than 2 per player, so you never need more than 12 of those. We might be close to that. As long as you're willing to make change and such not. And I'm kind of anal retentive about that, so it wouldn't hurt me to have the numbers, be smaller. A more modern game would have larger counters probably, because this is something you have to be able to glance at and see at a single glance. If this was a good game, it could be greatly improved by more modern components, is what I'm saying. At the time period, it's not terrible. These are not, they feel kind of West Endish to me, which is to say lower quality than you would expect from Avalon Hill. But again, this was probably kind of a marginal game for Avalon Hill. It's weird because both the Avalon Hill Gaming Company, or instead of AH, Thagic, something like that. They used to insist on their trademark things, like if you called them Avalon Hill, I don't know what they would do, but they used to actually, I think, send letters to people. Please refer to us as the Avalon Hill Gaming Company. It's like, what the hell? I guess it would depend on, the reach of the publication. They didn't care if you're like some little fanzine or something. But, the bigger ones, they tended to make fun of how, Avalon Hill, good thing they're no longer there, was so defensive of their trademark and I don't know, to not be shortened or anything. But what was it? Yeah, it's funny because Avalon Hill and SPI were both aiming at this era to try to get more of the fantasy role players into their games, and this would not be a bad choice to aim for. It same as things like Wizards, you know, and but it also felt like they were out of their element in it. In terms of these kind of gambles, and unlike SPI, they kind of knew they were out of their element. Now they got some they got right, like Wizard's Quest, Dune. They got these games right, you know. I don't like Wizard's Quest terribly, but a lot of people do, right? But you know, SPI kind of spent big bucks on like advertising and on acquiring like Dallas's IP. You know, I don't know what. Maybe they did a percentage on that or something, because. But they printed a lot of them. They made a big deal out of it, and these things just, you know, the games weren't completely handled well. I feel like Avalon Hill did more of a, yeah, we're not really sure. We'll see if we hit it big. And, you know, with Dune, they certainly did. Wizard's Quest, I think they did a decent job in terms of getting market on it. Elric, it's a weird game. Have I done that yet? If I haven't, I'm really upset because I like that. Dragon Hunt was very good, but I don't think, you know, it just didn't capture much. But anyway, where the hell am I? I'm on the wrongdoing thing. Yeah, I'm trying to avoid that now. There are no real modifiers to the accusation itself, just a +2 for the down with the king card being drawn. That didn't happen, but he's been accused. And now I have kind of the choice. This is the time to go into hiding if I'm going to do it. Because otherwise I go to a hearing and I'm kind of forced into problems all at once. Do I want to go in hiding? So if I'm killed, I think I lose like half my PP and half my IP. I lose cards. My faction's going to be reduced, etc. But I just don't feel like I'm that far along. You know, I'm doing well I'm doing as well as anyone else. But I think it's easier to rebuild with a non-hiding character who's been executed than it is, you know, it's not like I have a very powerful faction. I almost never go into hiding because it's very hard to build up a powerful faction in this game, and it's almost like this is not far from what at least my memory tells me is kind of where things settle. You just never really get all that much. Now, once you play enough of it, eventually this deck starts, you know, trading over and more and more stuff go into players. But there's a fair amount of opportunities to fuck people over, one way or another. There's no evidence played. This guy played an Informer card. That's going to put it to like -2 total. He didn't have an alibi. This isn't very good. Once you get to a hearing, it's bad because you're rolling 2 dice, I believe. Yeah. So I need like a 5 or less, and it's kind of weird because sometimes you have to roll less than or equal to, like when you're trying to when you're trying to avoid a wrongdoing or a hearing, I think. What the fuck was that? I think a bird did something. You have to see what they fucked up with. They may have landed on something they shouldn't have. I've got some parts of my house that are kind of traps right now. Yeah, I think I just have to roll equal to or under. I'm trying to find it here. If the number is less than the status rating, no, it's actually under. Okay. So -2, that puts me to looking for under a 5. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So now that means I will be interrogated, will not be. It's my PC. I have to go to trial. This is going to be more painful. This guy played an informer because he had 12 cards. And he's like, well, I'll have to discard something. Now, it might be a good idea to stay at 12 cards. The reason is I can get rid of something like a treachery or... yeah, I only have one bad card in here. On my own turn. So there's kind of a reason not to really play bad cards, but I just decided to. All right. So yeah, and I'm going into more detail than I intended to. For trial, the first thing we have to do, hey, who's the Minister of Justice or whatever? Does anybody have that? It's over here, which means the judge is random. So on a 1 to 3, I get my own judge, and that's a 5-point bonus for me. But I don't, which means it's a 5-point penalty. That's a problem. He pulls another informer out of his hand to put it up there. Still no evidence and no alibis. That's going to get me a 5 with a net of +3. The lack of evidence, but the judge, which ends up being imprisoned. So I look for imprisoned in Fandonia. That's just imprisoned. He's imprisoned. He loses his position as High Minister. No more drugs for him, man. And yeah, now he's got the impact of being imprisoned, which has its own restrictions. This is so tiny, it's hard to see. I don't know how to deal with it because, and it's white on white. This is the problem. So when I get to his turn, I'm probably going to draw a card and 2 chits, and I'm not supposed to, right? I've got a lot of limitations while I'm imprisoned. And I also have to worry about, you know, I basically have to, because of the way these rules are structured, I basically have to read through the whole rule, sometimes skim through it several times instead, to find out how to cope with the situation. There's, you know, they try to make some shortnesses for the activities chart here, but when you start getting off of the stuff that's on the player aid cards, there's not a lot of support for, here's the important stuff. Same problem applies. So this isn't quite as unfriendly looking formatting as Republic of Rome had, but the same kind of problems applied to Republic of Rome, where it's like the rule book was just such a mess. Now that was a Don Greenwood special. This isn't quite as bad, and like I said, it's a Moon. Moon was the developer for this, but it's still close to the same kind of formatting and whatnot. And you know, it's just like, at least it's not a Yaquinta rulebook, which actually would have things broken up into even more case numbers, too many for my taste, and then they'd also have the rules span the entire page, which is just problematic. So you'd have like a case number and a line that goes across, a case number and maybe a line and 3 words that go across. It's just like, Jesus. What an awful setup. Out of the time period, the best rules, well, by 80, you're talking Victory Games. Victory Games did some pretty damn good rule sets. Not everything, but most of their rules were really well handled. But prior to, I mean, Victory Games didn't exist quite yet. This was probably the very end of SPI. At that SPI era, they were the best that was out there. And I think what was learned there was moved over to Victory Games and refined and improved in a lot of ways. A lot of what they did with them was just brilliant. But yeah, most of these companies just did not do good rules. And Avalon Hill was all over the place with their rules, right? They were never really good, but the question was, how did they fuck them up in terms of presentation? Like at their very best, they were approximately at GMT's level of, rules, formatting, and presentation, which, I'm okay with, but it's not great. It's not great. Now I'm left trying to remember, wait, are we in a famine? No, that was last turn. And did I buy a job last turn? If I did, I cheated. But it means that I can buy, not for the judge, but I can buy the high ministry for myself. That doesn't count against my PP, so that's a good start in the jobs phase. There aren't any others to fill. That gets me down to political problems, and I am going way too much detail. I've shown the mechanisms before, but it's hard when I've been away a little bit to keep going. I gotta check to see what the fuck that bird did. It's been a good reason not to keep the high ministry, because that's what's in charge of the peasant unrest, and he's not very good at it. Oh well. So he needs to get a 1 or a 2. He's working on the job. Yeah, he needs to do a 1 or a 2 because he's trying to help it. He doesn't get that. You'll see I've put parentheses around the last office holder, and now I'm a new office holder. So the problem just continues, and we go back up. Why did it go down to 80? I don't know. I'm not sure that's right, but whatever. I don't know. All right. Well, we'll leave it as it is because, yeah, it went down to 80 because I think it should actually be 10 higher. I'm not going to fuck with it, but I think it should be 10 higher because I think the cancel out turn, one was resolved, one wasn't. Then, I don't know, these happened at the same time. Yeah, maybe that's right. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Again, it's hard to keep track of all this shit. We'll pretend it's right. And where does that get us? We haven't rolled a crown event. Wait, we just rolled the crown events. The political problem, I didn't have to solve that. Fuck. I'm losing track of where I am. I took the job, but I didn't have to solve it because the crown events is what gave me the intrigue. It wasn't the first thing in the turn, which it often feels to me like it should be. It's down here. So this 80 was right. And I didn't have to make an attempt to resolve it. And that means we're on the intrigue, and we're going into the player turns, and I will put them here and go see what the bird was up to. It probably knocked one of my little awnings down, which are, like, I only have one left, and it's kind of precariously balanced, so if they land on that, they would make the noise that I heard. I got an extra activity chit, and I got one of these. I mustered him. I did a craft table because I have a big bonus on craft table. It's so easy to do the craft table that a fair number of players end up with a bonus on it, and I got a little bit, and that's fine. I'm only using up 3 of my 8, so I'm okay. But I can't think of anything to do with the third action. I looked through the set. I did a prestige table. I could pay $1 and draw something. If I draw one of these, I can't use it, so I would have wanted to do it earlier. You need the intrigue opportunity counter. The crown event isn't good enough. You just need all kind of stuff, and I looked through my cards and I didn't see anything I really want to do. I could acquire a title. I could improve my position. That's not a bad choice. Let's see. From Sir to Knight cost me 2 IPs. Sure, we'll do that. So now, and we don't want to do this with anyone but our dude. But that gives us now a 2 status. Anyone else you do it on, it's going to count against your PP. So unless you start having real huge quantities of PP, there's no real reason to do that. But now, and the reason I wanted to get to this, is I have counseling and I have a couple of options. I could counsel on peasant unrest or I could counsel on intrigue. Peasant unrest, I could discharge myself. I could enact repressive laws or liberal reforms, no biggie on either of those, or take military action, which gets rid of peasant support cards. Do I have any? Might be a useful thing to weaken people's hands. On the other hand, maybe it's worth doing some of these others, get them cleared out of the way for a later time in the game when the military action makes more sense. Now on intrigue, I could extradite a wrongdoer, I could recommend a new ambassador to Bessazin, make an accusation of wrongdoing. This is kind of dangerous. Just like intriguing a card was kind of dangerous. Announce an amnesty. All of these are possible for me to do. Don't really want to do any of those. So I roll a die to make my decision because, as Jason Crowley, I think it is, Crowley, mentioned, sometimes I just like roll a die for decisions when there's no good reason for it. It's really a matter of I don't see any advantage one way or another when I do it. I'm going to take military action. So this is James. And what are we in? We're in peasant unrest. He is now responsible for 4. Once I do them all, I'll put an X in. That means I can do whatever I like for the rest of the game. And we've done this already, but let's take a look at it, because what the hell? Counseling. I got no bonuses here. Actually, I do have bonuses here. High Minister, Minister of the Army, which I have, so I have 2 in my favor. General and Sheriff. This is a reason to do it. I'm at +2 on the table. How often will I be that high? I get a 5/7. Monarch is pleased. I get a PP. One reason you want to do counseling is it's a relatively low risk additional prestige table that you get to do every turn if you have either an office somewhere or a monarch's counselor. Oh, the monarch's counselor could have dropped that by 1. It would have still been the same. Remember, the optional rule, they're allowed to modify everything. Just making those cards more powerful. That's a valuable thing because when I played without that option, what I found was that players simply went around, players almost always had an office. There was very little value to this whole pile of Monarch's Counselor cards that were in the deck. All right, I'll go to the next player, and hopefully I'll back off and not do as much. By the way, I couldn't figure out what the hell happened outside. So, I drew the gout counter. I know that it makes you lose your turn, more or less, but I didn't know, but I thought it also takes 1 IP away. It does. So there's that as well. But it's actually written a little differently than I thought. It's written, let's find it. The player loses 1 IP. That player may not perform any activities this turn. So I think I can still counsel. I take a kind of interesting counsel here. I'm going to do intrigue. Well, I don't know. What I'm thinking of is make an accusation of wrongdoing. The Minister of Justice has a point on this. That's not in anybody's hand. But each judge has a point. The sheriff does. That's not in anyone's hands. Each judge does. So if I accuse this person with no judges, Lady Margaret or whatever, of a wrongdoing, can I count on these people supporting it? Well, I generally allow table talk. So I think what I'd do is I'd ask them, hey, if I do this, would you support me? And they're unlikely to lie about something that little. If they lie about something that little at this stage in the game, you kind of get a, Both of them say they are, so I'm going to do that. And that'll give me a +2 on my counseling table, which is pretty cool. So under intrigue, I'm going to put down a 3. And I get a 5. Okay, I gain a PP, one that I would not have gotten otherwise with that shitty roll. So I was able to like leverage the game state to get some kind of advantage out of the situation. Gotta check my card count. I may be over. I may have to discard. Get rid of a crime with all this intriguing being available. Who knows? You know, this one might come back and get the same kind of, probably get the same kind of reaction off of that guy. Speaking of which, he's got limitations. And here's where the game happens again. The game of look up the rules for everything. So right now I'm imprisoned, and I have to look up what I can do. I get one thing. I can only perform render a pardon, announce an amnesty, or escape. I don't think the imprisoned character can counsel. I think he'd lose anything if he could. But I can still counsel with one of these, which is somewhat useful. So, let's take a look at what I got. I got an escape. That's not exactly the best. More than one escape. And a whole bunch of fucking evidence. Okay, so I've got an escape. How do I render a pardon? I need a pardon event card. Well, since I can't muster anyone, so I won't want to take one of those. Those are iffy. So I'm going to draw one of these. I get a Palace Guards. That's useful. I guess I'll try to escape. I'm trying to go into hiding under those circumstances. Escape. Escape event card or prison guards event card. Oh, I could do it with prison guards. Or park cards event card if I'm already in hiding. The prison guard avoids a prison escape. So people are going to look for that. It's probably worth playing, but I don't know. You know, there's a fair chance that I can render a pardon or something maybe. She actually had a prison guards card, but doesn't want to play it. That means the escape's going to be successful, and that makes me hiding in Fandonia. Now, that's kind of interesting, because I was sent to trial, and the trial sent me to prison. But if I am extradited, I believe I go back to a trial, or do I go to a hearing? Yeah, I go to a hearing again. So the whole process restarts. This is very different from any kind of prison I'm used to. You know? The idea, I can't imagine any time period where, yeah, you were found guilty and we're going to retry you though. Again, some of the stuff that thematically doesn't make a lot of sense, right? The game is full of theme. It's full of theme of a world that just like doesn't comport with anything that we're used to. But now I'm allowed to counsel, and it would be great to announce an amnesty. The Minister of Justice and the Sheriff are the only ones who can effect this. I'm going to have Earl Duncan, the Minister of the Navy, do this counseling. I got to find the counseling table. I have to pick an office holder to do this. He gets a big 6. That gives me something. I get a PP out of it. But, you know, I don't get the result I wanted. And I've already done the announce and amnesty, which is number 4 on intrigue for player number 1. And you can see sometimes the counseling is just like, you know, whatever. Like the enact repressive laws or liberal reforms. Those just don't do a damn thing. It's like cracking down on the students in Junta. But there are also things where you want to get something done. But now I'm in a position where I have to get the other 3. And then I can do this as many times as I like, right? Like I have to show that I'm willing to do anything, to counsel anything, to be allowed to keep counseling the things that are actually effectual. Feels a little stupid to me, not in all cases, but when I'm looking at something like, if I can find the chart, the one that we looked at, the peasant unrest, enact repressive laws and liberal reforms. The fact that I have to do both of those, it just makes me sound like I'm a flip-flopper more than anything else. And again, it's a world that doesn't make sense. Here's the bonus, any activity chit, which I know allows me to do things without any other component, but I don't know what things it allows me to do. Now I could look through here and find, hey, do you have any activity? Actually, I don't even think it does. No. So like, I look here, and it's like intrigue, opportunity counter, and an assassination event card. I think any activity allows me to just do that, but I need to look it up every goddamn time because it's just a chit with a word and, you know, or 2 words in this case, and it doesn't give me enough information. A card deck for this would be much more useful. Of course, a card deck, the advantage of the chit is that you get full randomization each time. You get the full pool each time. It's like rolling on a table or something. The disadvantage, of course, is lack of information on a chit. So I look for this, any activity. What can I do? Render a pardon, announce an amnesty, conduct an assassination, expose a scandal, escape, extradite. Okay, I'm going to extradite the wrongdoer. Do I want to? Do I want to spend an activity on this? I don't know. It feels so pointless. Treachery, seduce a character. I got all kind of things I can do. Now, right now, I actually really just want to build my faction. So I have 12 PPs, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are used up. I have an opportunity to get Sir Charles. I think I've got things I want to do. If I had an extra activity, maybe I would do another thing, but I'm sitting on, you know, a bunch of crimes that I'd like to get out of my hand. So I just don't think I'm going to do any of those. I ended up mustering Sir Charles, making him my henchman, and now I ask this guy, hey, if I take the intrigue table, extradite a, the counseling table, extradite a wrongdoer, will you vote in favor canceling out his judge who's going to definitely vote against? And I think the answer is yes, since he answered yes before and he doesn't have any, there's no real animosity anywhere. The only real question is this player willing to just use his capabilities to fuck around with other players at the potential advantage to someone? I don't feel like she's all that advantaged. Really, the thing that determines how well you're doing in the game is how much PP you have. Although the PP can exceed the amount of people you have in your faction. So I break even on this. Oh, Monarch's Counselor. She's willing to too, I think. I don't know. She see things weird? Nah. So that actually gives me a +1 on the counseling table, which puts me to an 8. I get another PP. But I have done a number 1, speaking of PP, on the intrigue for player, oh fuck. See, this is the fault of doing this all on one sheet. Each player could have their own chart. It's the screwed up thing with this game. A lot of this is for the entire game. So the Monarch support, the Foreign Wars, characters banned, and status of non-RC King Queen, that's all for the whole game. That covers everyone. Whereas and unresolved political problems. The prestige modifiers and the councils made to the Monarch are all individual per player. And I end up with this, having to chart. Yeah. So this information is available to everyone. There's no reason that it should be hidden or anything. So it could all be tracked in one place. And it could simply be done, again, with like a bunch of tracks for each of these on that same player card or something else. It really feels like doing this on a piece of paper. You basically have to, if you were playing with 6 players, now I don't know how much this came with, but these never came with very many. Of course, you can photocopy them and everything. But the idea of like 1 per player, like this maybe had 20 to begin with, to give you an idea of maybe how much I played it. At most, right? But the idea that like you need 1 per player because of these 2 tables is kind of obscene, Of course, you could do it all, just on a piece of scrap paper or whatever. But again, it's not terribly helpful. It's just the components just don't quite. They get in the way of playing the game and having a fun time. Is I guess what I'm saying. So I think that's got us through this turn. And I know I'm moving much slower than I wanted to. I really need to back away or something. I really do. Because we want to see the growth and the changes rather than the minutia of the play. Because the minutia of the play isn't all that interesting. Most of it is looking up shit in the rolls. Or looking up a chart result or something like that. There's just... there's not a lot of room for a lot of strategic thinking and whatnot. There's so much randomness on the charts that it just doesn't do much. He was not extradited because I didn't get a success there. And if he had been, he would go back through the whole here. That's basically how you get, an appeal in this game, is you run away. On top of all the component problems that I was just elucidating, make up pronunciations or new words. We're not sure. I think I was trying to make up a new word there. This guy's in prison. Or he's in hiding. But he could have been in prison. If you're in prison for 3 turns, something happens. But there's no clear way to mark that you've been in there for 3 turns. Again, it's just like the components aren't sufficient to make the game playable. You can make more components. I can put a number counter on that and whatnot. That may not be too bad an idea to do, but it's an annoyance factor to the whole thing. I think I ought to put something on him just to remind me that he's like in a special status, because it's hard to see that little white counter. Okay, so on this next turn, Sir James here is the first player. I'm throwing all the dice over with him along with the eraser. That way, if I need the eraser for something, I can at least maintain some sort of state there. What our peasant unrest was not solved. We also got an international incident, though, that showed up. And Minister of State and the one ambassador that any player has. You kind of have to look all around. There's a lot of game state that's just spread out all over the place. And I have a hard time doing that. But it wouldn't be so hard opposed, I think. Ended up resolving that. So the point total stays even, 1 for the failure, 1 for the success, or 10 points in each case. And that's going to throw us to the player turns. Example of the problems involved. So I'm doing James. I can't get the Archbishop. Okay, whatever. I did a craft roll and got myself higher PP, but still not enough. What I think I want to do, because I have an ending activity chip, is try to recruit Lady Mary by treachery. So I look here, recruit a character by treachery. No cards are listed here. The cancels, and I know that there are cancels involved that are available in this. They should be on that chart. They really should. So instead what I have to do is go find this. And I'm allowed to do it with an any activity even though it doesn't say it here. It's kind of weird. The any activities, they don't mean any. They mean a certain select set, and they're not listed in the individual items. I don't think it can be canceled. To recruit a character, the player must have drawn an intrigue, have enough, play a treachery, and point to any character he wishes to recruit. That player automatically, that player becomes a FAC or a FARC. It's got this weird thing of like, I think I pointed this out before, where it's like, it's a character, it's not a player. It's a typo, but I don't think there is a cancel. Huh. Interesting. The wording of the any activity is the player may perform any one of the following activities. So I think that eats up my chit to do that. I don't have an extra activity, but I do have extra activity cards. I could have extradited him if I hadn't done the treachery, but the treachery is definitely a better choice. So I think I just sit there. I'm at 12 cards. I forgot to take my attempt to counsel with him. That's fine. Fuck it. And moved on to Lady Melanie. She ended up picking up another character. She got an intrigue counter, chose not to use it. She could have, and it would get rid of a dangerous treachery card to recruit him. No reason to use seduction when you can use treachery, because you want to get those cards out of your hand, basically. That's kind of the danger there. And instead, I was at 13 cards, so I threw it out. Illegal cards. Don't want them in your hand. You don't want them. I figured this might be an important, valuable time to explore the patronage table for him while he's in hiding, because all gains and losses are halved. Well, I got a lousy roll. No class lose 20 PP, so I'm down to 3 now, which means I can only hold the judge, right? Yeah, I can't discard a job or anything like that, so my faction has just gotten wrecked by playing around on that table. You know, plus I had to pay the money for it. And here we had an extra activity. I probably wasted it. I grabbed a new character, another good duelist, and made him a henchman. It's not really worth having 2 henchmen was kind of foolish. Went on the literary table where she has a bonus, but I feel like I kind of wasted actions in my turn by doing that. I could have done something else and kept that card in my hand where it's a non-illegal card. I'm going to halt here. Kind of hungry. Kind of have other things I want to do. I'll load this one up actually.